What's up, guys? Don't forget to smash that like button, drop a comment, hype up the video, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe and join the family. Guys, if you want to support the channel and get something cool, check the first link in the description. Use my code HugoHenriqueMore to get 10% off on anime lamps. Several system screens begin to appear informing that no intelligent system above level TK-173 has been detected. A strange energy core emerges, questioning where the so-called LBO might be. Another being manifests, addressing the Master and reporting that all human envoys have been activated, while the Factor of all things has already finished loading on Earth. The Master, calm, thinks that it doesn't matter where LBO is, because he has already surpassed it long ago, and there is no way it can interfere in his era. More system windows open, authorizing login. Then an image appears, asking if, after the destruction caused by the AI, the new world is finally about to begin. The Master shows excitement, emphasizing that the day when he would become king is getting closer. Other beings also manifest, warning that the young should not be arrogant or foolish. Yet one of them expresses disdain, making it clear that he just wants everything to begin already. The Master observes and concludes that apparently everyone, just like him, has been waiting for this moment for a long time. Then he focuses an absurd amount of vital energy into a single point and declares that they could finally welcome the advent of the new world. Meanwhile, on Earth, everything seems normal until trees begin to sprout out of nowhere, destroying houses in their path. Noises echo through the city as swarms of rats appear and attack people, who desperately try to defend themselves. Many of these humans notice something strange in their bodies, as if a dormant power has been awakened. Not all, however, are able to sense such energy, and those without power cry out for help while being attacked. A young man, without hesitation, uses his backpack as a shield to protect a little girl and urges her to run. He asks if she can still move, and she confirms that she can. At that moment, he hears a voice in his mind, congratulating him for awakening as an F-rank warrior. When he looks ahead, he sees colossal energy rising from the ground to the sky and concludes that the world is definitely no longer the same. In the year 2051, the so-called creator AI caused a cataclysm, declaring itself a top-tier system created to reshape the world. 3 years later, in 2054, in the forested area north of City H, a group of hunters faces fierce beasts. The leader shouts for them to finish off the remaining enemies quickly. A shield-bearer pushes a wolf away and yells for Weii to get ready since the airdrop had arrived. The animal is thrown toward the boy, who replies to leave it to him. He leaps, focused, and delivers a fatal blow to the wolf. The system announces that the Fang wolf has been defeated, but also warns that Weii is under the broken body state, unable to gain experience. Jojo, an E7 rank warrior, calls out to him and praises him, saying the last strike was impressive. Weii responds that it was only possible thanks to Jojo's support, since alone the fight would have been much harder. Joe, however, disagrees, claiming that even alone with his skills, 2 or 3 such monsters would not be a problem. Weii reflects that in the current situation the only thing he can rely on are his combat skills, as he is still only rank F. At present, he is Luo Weii, Human Warrior rank F1, with attributes listed as follows: Strength 50, Endurance 43, Mental Power 15, Elemental Power 12, Luck 36, and Speed 44. He has no extra attribute points. His skills are Swift, innate, and Block, innate. However, his special state is Broken Body, an abnormal effect that appeared after his awakening and prevents him from gaining experience in battle. Weii awakened his abilities 3 years ago, but since then has remained trapped in this state. Even so, he does not give up, refusing to be defeated by fate. He believes that even if he cannot level up, with enough effort he will be able to survive in this new world. Jojo throws some items toward him, asking him to catch them. Weii is surprised, asking if he's really giving him 2 magic crystals, even if of low quality. Joe confirms and adds that they will share 50% of everything they gain. Still confused, Weii insists that he is on a level below him, but Joe counters that friends don't need so many justifications, only that he accepts. The protagonist smiles, grips the magic crystals tightly, and thanks him. These crystals, after all, are the reason they hunt. Since the emergence of the New World, all sources of energy for humanity were destroyed, and magic crystals, obtained from the bodies of beasts, became the essential substitute for human energy. Each crystal contains an immense reservoir of power. Besides energizing everyday tools, it also serves to enhance equipment. Their efficiency is so great that they created a huge market where demand often exceeds supply, to the point where crystals replaced gold and became the new hard currency, with even a single low-quality crystal worth more than 1,000, while high-quality ones had no price. Weii grips the crystal he received tightly and, looking at his hand, thinks that he urgently needs more because, besides daily expenses, he still has to buy wine for his grandfather and snacks for his little sister. If he stops to reflect, he realizes he is still far from his true goal since the rent will also be due soon, and if he doesn't pay on time, he will end up on the street. He calculates that he needs at least 20 more low-quality crystals. Lost in thought, he notices Jojo hiding beside him, behind a tree, watching something. He asks what he is looking at, and his companion tells him to see for himself, saying that Guy was repeating the same scene again. Ahead, a boy tries to woo a woman. With a flower in hand, he says that if she doesn't like flowers, he can buy something else, and asks what it would take for her to accept being his girlfriend. The woman, embarrassed, asks only that he be quiet. The young man, Ma Chi-hao, shouts that no matter what happens, he is the best archer on the team, and that if she doesn't agree to go out with him, the one losing will be her. Currently, Chi-hao is a D9 rank archer. The woman, Lin Xiang, a C1 rank mage and leader of the adventurer group Meteor, feels even more embarrassed, wondering how she could have recruited someone so annoying. Even so, she decides to drop the subject and focus on another problem. Her weapon failed in the last battle, and this worries her for future fights, as she urgently needs someone skilled in mechanics to evaluate it. Looking back, she notices Weii and Jojo behind the tree watching, and thinks she might ask for help. She approaches and explains that her weapon is broken, and that she cannot return to the city to fix it, asking if Weii could take a look. He agrees and concentrates on the equipment. The others gather around while he examines carefully and realizes that a wire was loose and simply reconnecting it would fix it. Chi-hao starts mocking, saying that this was not an ordinary weapon, but an advanced magic crystal armament, and that an idiot like Weii could never repair it. He reinforces to the leader that once he is rich, he will buy her a better weapon. The other members laugh at the archer, commenting that he always brags. A girl also laughs, saying she has lost count of how many times he has done this. Lin Xiang gets irritated and scolds him, reminding him that it is his turn to patrol and asking why he is interfering. Chi-hao tries to defend himself but is interrupted when Weii stands up and raises the weapon, declaring that now it should work fine. Everyone is impressed by his speed. He returns the weapon to Lin Xiang, who immediately tests it. When she applies her strength, she feels the conduction of elemental energy flow normally again and looks satisfied. Chi-hao, annoyed, is cut off by her as she orders him to start patrolling right away. Still irritated, he walks away thinking to himself that, being handsome, it's only a matter of time before things work out for him. Lin Xiang turns back to Weii and says she is lucky to have someone so skilled in mechanics, because without him, she would have to be much more cautious in future battles. Weii smiles embarrassed, stating that it wasn't hard at all, as it was just a simple problem. He recalls how they first met. 3 years earlier, Lin Xiang was already his senior, president of the student council, and he had helped her in a mechanical engineering class. After awakening, she founded the Meteor Group with her leadership skills and invited him to join, even with his low ranking. She never treated him differently and always looked after him. In the present, Lin Xiang looks at the necklace he wears and admits a long-standing curiosity, asking if there is a story behind that accessory since she has seen him wearing the same necklace since their school days. Jojo steps into the conversation and explains that the necklace is not just an accessory, but a talisman made by the robot who once accompanied the protagonist. He laughs and recalls that when Weii was little, he was fragile and afraid of the dark, so the robot gave him the talisman to protect him and help him grow healthy. Lin Xiang laughs as well, saying that now she understands why he has worn it for so long. Weii quickly clarifies that it only made sense when he was a child, but today the real reason he still wears it is different. He emphasizes that whenever he looks at the necklace, he remembers the past, because after his parents died, it was that robot who gave him the courage to move forward. However, the creator destroyed everything, and all intelligent robots had their permissions revoked, plunging the world under her control. Lin Xiang places her hand on his shoulder and says she understands how hard it is to deal with that, but reminds him that the AIs were destroyed 6 years ago, and that the world had already changed 3 years ago. There was nothing they could do about it, and for that reason, they shouldn't let themselves be defeated. They had to carve a new path. Weii feels stirred by her words and agrees, affirming that this is the best way to honor the past. Jojo and Lin Xiang smile, saying that's exactly right. He looks at the clock and thinks that for now, the most important thing is to gather more magic crystals to solve his immediate problems. Hidden behind some trees, Chi-hao watches everything, seething with anger and wondering what they could be talking about for so long. 2 other members of the group approach and ask if he isn't going to patrol, pointing out that apparently Weii is more reliable than him. The archer gets irritated, turns around, and starts yelling that in this new world, strength is what truly matters, and that no one should care about a mere F rank like that idiot. He walks quickly, kicking a stone, and shouts that once he gets rich, he will prove his worth. But as he watches the stone, he notices it followed a strange path. Approaching it, he discovers a portal and wonders what it could be. One of the members runs back and informs Lin Xiang that Qihao found a ruin. Surprised, the three quickly gather the whole group to go there. Jojo looks impressed, saying he can't believe a place like that really exists. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Qihao continues boasting, reminding everyone that it was him who discovered the site. Lin Xiang analyzes the entrance and comments that, according to rumors, ruins hold great rewards, but the dangers inside are unknown and a single mistake could mean death. She decides to open a vote to determine whether they should enter. 4 members argue that hunting magical beasts on the surface is uncertain and agree to go in. The other 4 consider the risk too high and prefer not to take chances, since hunting on the surface is still safer. Faced with the tie, Lin Xiang asks for Weiyi's opinion. He grips the necklace, thinking that he still needs 20 magic crystals, and that if they stayed only on the surface, it would be nearly impossible to get them in time. But if they went inside, there was at least a glimmer of hope. With no choice, confident and determined, he declares that he wants to enter. Once inside the ruin, the group advances with maximum caution. Lin Xiang observes the surroundings and remarks that the structures are so ancient, it seemed the place had been sealed for many years. Jojo points out a stone tablet ahead. As they approach, they notice the carved symbols are unfamiliar and cannot understand what is written. Weii casually states that the warning is clear. There is a trap ahead and they must not proceed. Jojo is startled and asks if he really managed to read it, but the protagonist explains no, pointing to the side where it was written in plain language. Ahead lies a trap. Please turn back. The girl and her friend comment that it might be a warning left by someone who had been there before them, and that perhaps the place was truly dangerous, suggesting they should retreat. Qihao loses patience and yells at the group, saying there was no danger at all and that he worked hard to find the place so he would not leave empty-handed. Wanting to show off again, Qihao takes the lead and walks ahead of everyone, claiming he already understood everything, that it was obviously meant to trick and scare people. He keeps walking and asks if they see it. Nothing is happening to him. The protagonist shouts for him to wait and stop doing things like that, but he keeps moving forward until he steps on something. As soon as he does, a mechanism activates and the entire place begins to shift. The group leader panics and shouts, asking what is happening, cursing the archer as a complete idiot who always causes trouble. Weii warns everyone that the floor is also starting to move and they must be careful, but when he looks ahead, he realizes it's already too late. The platform beneath him begins to slide and he starts to fall. Quickly, he draws his sword and drives it into the rock, trying to hold on to avoid plummeting. People scream that the ground is definitely cracking apart and the leader orders everyone to be as cautious as possible and stay on the platforms. Jojo asks if the protagonist is okay, and he replies yes, telling them not to worry. Other members of the group help pull him back up. Qihao hears new sounds and grows nervous, asking if it's starting again and if it will ever end. Weii looks back and sees the whole place transforming once more. Lin Xiang yells that they must send an emergency signal. The platform under the protagonist starts to behave strangely, and people ask if they're about to fall when suddenly it shoots off at incredible speed, leaving everyone completely terrified. When the platform finally stops, the protagonist, with a sharp headache, realizes the team has been forcibly separated. He looks around and asks where they are, but as he moves his leg, he notices something strange. Looking down, he sees a magic crystal there. He picks it up and analyzes it, thinking it doesn't resemble the ones he had in his pocket. It looked purer, and wonders where it might have come from. When he raises his head, he realizes the entire place is filled with an enormous quantity of magic crystals. Stunned, he whispers in a trembling voice that it seems he has just arrived in a truly extraordinary place. He keeps observing the cavern, brimming with crystals, and concludes that apparently it was possible to find magic crystals in places other than inside magical beasts. Weii continues looking at the crystal in his hand and says that, although they are a little different, they are definitely magic crystals, and what's more, of a far superior quality than the low-grade ones. The protagonist is astonished and thinks this means that if he can collect a few more, he'll have enough money to pay all his debts. Suddenly, he hears someone shouting in amazement at the place, asking if it is really real. Qihao and the others, who had also fallen there, exclaim that both the walls and the ground were full of magic crystals. The archer begins gathering them, yelling that he is finally rich, and becomes so overwhelmed that he asks his companions to pinch him to make sure it isn't a dream. Weii watches and realizes that he was so dazzled by the crystals that he had momentarily forgotten about his teammates. Again, the archer boasts, saying he told them the place was good and that, even though everyone complained earlier, now all they had to do was look around. 2 people end up agreeing with him, saying that apparently they were wrong and that, since he was the highest ranked among them, they would follow his orders directly. Chi is delighted and insists they won't go wrong if they listen to him. Weii thinks that he too must work hard to collect as many crystals as possible. He prepares to pick one up, but the archer shouts at him, demanding to know who gave him permission to touch anything. Weii asks if he wanted the whole area to himself, because if that were the case, he could simply collect from another side. The archer, irritated, comes closer and punches him hard in the stomach, yelling that he had warned him not to touch his crystals. But Chi is stunned by what happens because the protagonist blocks the blow as if it were nothing, and then calmly says he has no interest in starting a fight. He just needs a few crystals for something important. He politely asks Chi to be understanding. The archer, still not understanding what just happened, wonders if the protagonist really managed to block his strike. He prepares to attack again, thinking that his current strength is 200, so that defense could only have been pure luck. As he charges, he asks if the protagonist truly wants to negotiate with him, since before anything else he must prove whether he is qualified. Chi keeps striking relentlessly, but Weii easily defends against every blow and tells him that he has been annoyed with him for a long time, questioning whether he isn't close to the leader, because if that were the case, his skills should be better. The archer retorts that in the face of rank and power, skills mean nothing. The protagonist reflects that even just imitating the principle of the block skill, redirecting most of the force at the moment of impact, every punch still feels like a stone slamming into his body. And if he counterattacks, it will probably only feed his companion's fury, making everything worse. The two people with them wonder if they should intervene and separate the fight because if they continue, someone will end up seriously injured. Chi stares at the protagonist, thinking he only wanted to teach him a lesson, but Weii blocked all his blows. The archer can't understand how an F rank could have so much strength and begins to question what is different about that boy. The others insist they stop, reminding them that they need to focus on harvesting the magic crystals first because if anything else happens, it won't be worth it. Annoyed, Chi agrees and says he'll spare the protagonist this time, but he points at him and threatens, telling him to remember what just happened and never touch the crystals again with his filthy hands. Weii thinks that idiot finally left, but feels his body reaching its limit. Suddenly, he is overcome by dizziness and coughs blood. As expected, the difference in attributes is not something that can be overcome easily. Even if his skills lessen the gap, he is still only an F rank and will always be at a disadvantage against any D rank or higher. The group starts collecting crystals while Chi keeps glaring at the protagonist, who thinks that gathering enough crystals to pay his debts right then was clearly out of reach. He ties a bandage, reflecting that on top of everything there is no signal down there, so he cannot contact the rest of the team. When thunder rumbles outside, all that remains is to search for another way forward. Covered in the bandage, he looks around, finding everything strange and wondering how those magic crystals could have formed. Normally, the stronger the magical beast, the higher the grade of the crystal within it. The reverse might also be true. With so many crystals accumulated, perhaps they were nourishing something. He decides to explore the place since there's nothing else to do, and at least he might find an exit or some answers. Passing through a small opening, he is surprised by what he finds. A new chamber filled with crystals and a massive cage. Inside it, there is a machine. He approaches, incredulous, remarking that maybe this is over the top because within the machine lies a magic crystal the size of a person, something never before seen on the market. The outer layer looked like a paralysis barrier, and even though he knows little about it, he recognizes that this type of defense is usually used against large beasts, capable of stunning but not killing. He analyzes the structure, curious about who could have built such a device and where that crystal came from. He wonders if it could be the work of the creator, but quickly dismisses the thought since he doesn't believe the one who destroyed the world would appear in such a form. Suddenly, the talisman he carries begins to react to the environment, which shocks him. He wonders why this is happening, since in theory the item should have become useless after the end of the AI. Still, he thinks maybe not, and if the talisman is reacting, then it makes sense there is something here. At that moment, he hears the sound of crystals falling to the ground. Looking back, he sees the group has arrived. The archer, wide-eyed, yells about the colossal size of the crystal and asks his companions if they see it too. Then he exclaims that the crystal must be worth tens or even hundreds of millions. Laughing loudly, he declares himself the true chosen one, and even says no one needs to care about Lin Xiang because she isn't even worthy of standing at his side in that moment. The archer walks up to the protagonist and shoves him, ordering him out of the way. Weii feels a flash of irritation but thinks this was expected. After all, that idiot was bound to show up wherever magic crystals were. Suddenly, a deafening noise echoes and all four of them flinch. Something begins to move and several monsters emerge from holes in the ceiling. They are crest-wing birds, magical beasts ranked E8 to E10. They begin flying in every direction, screeching loudly. The group runs back and hides in the passage. Chi-hao asks if this must be some kind of joke because it clearly looks like the nest of crest-wing birds. One of the boys says he knows a bit about the species and explains they are notoriously ferocious magical beasts. They are not very fast, but their attack power is extremely high. Even at only E rank, they are already troublesome enough to give a D rank a headache. The other boy adds that they were lucky not to have been noticed yet. Meanwhile, the protagonist keeps looking at the talisman and notices it has returned to normal, wondering if this happened because he moved away from the platform's edge. He remembers that in the past he could sense signals through the talisman's connection, so he doesn't believe this sudden reaction was just a malfunction. Weii has a hunch that it is connected to the place and concludes that if that's true, then it must still be alive. Confident, he thinks he must take the risk since the answer clearly lies on that platform. But there were many magical beasts around, and alone he would have no chance, unless he got the help of the other three. Chi-hao watches the scene irritably, muttering that fortune was right in front of them and those creatures appeared at the worst possible time. The same boy from before warns that there is no way to defeat all those birds, and reminds them that the platform's barrier is difficult to cross, since not even those beasts can approach it. He suggests maybe it's better to give up. The archer gets angry, asking how they could give up something like that, since this was their chance to become millionaires or even billionaires. He asks if they're really going to quit so easily. The boy points out that the real question is, who will end up the winner? At that moment, the protagonist interrupts the discussion and declares that he can go get it, but the others must listen to him. Weii steps forward, saying they must conserve their elemental power and only attack the magical beasts that get close to him. Chi-hao, displeased, complains about having to take orders from an F rank but ends up obeying. He threatens that if the protagonist fails to secure the magic crystal, he'll have to find some way to make up for it. Weii, without hesitation, keeps running and thinks that as long as the archer keeps his eyes on that stone, he'll do his best to keep the support working, because that's the safest strategy. The rest will just be a race against time. A bat also helps, using its abilities to attack the creatures closing in on Weii. He keeps advancing, determined that he must move even faster. As he nears the platform, he thinks that this is the critical point and that he cannot fail. His companions begin complaining, saying there are too many monsters and the support won't be able to keep up. Chi-hao answers that everyone must hold their positions because, as long as Weii succeeds, in the end they will trick him, take the magic crystal, and then retreat immediately. The two ask if that won't cause trouble for Weii, but the archer snaps back, saying he doesn't understand why they would care about that trash, since accidents are normal in the hell they live in. The two glance at each other and continue with their tasks. Meanwhile, the protagonist pushes forward faster and faster, until his talisman reacts once more. He notices it and thinks that something above must be connected to it, and that whatever it is, it's probably waiting for him. He is convinced he will soon understand. Suddenly, one of the beasts flies straight at him. He notices the charge and uses block to defend, but the creature ends up standing between him and the platform. He manages to absorb part of the damage with the skill, but the strike is still devastating. The monster doesn't back off and lunges at him again. Weii yells for immediate support, but the two boys, terrified, shout back that it's already too late and they won't be able to reach him in time. Chi-hao grows furious with the situation, grabs 3 arrows and shouts that he can only count on himself, and if he fails, then it's better to die right there. He activates the thorn stab technique, cutting down the monsters surrounding the protagonist, then uses his swift skill, thinking that success or failure now depends on this single move. With the sudden burst of speed, he dashes forward for a brief moment until he finally reaches the platform. The paralysis barrier looms before him, but Chi-hao believes that if he's fast enough, he can break through. He charges with everything he has, but at the last instant, his swift skill fades, and his body is struck by the paralysis effect. Even so, he has already crossed to the inside. The other two companions are shocked to see that he actually made it in. A system interface appears announcing that the connection has succeeded and initiating the reading of recorded data. Chi-hao's paralysis state is removed, and he thinks to himself that the talisman was truly activated. The entire place begins to shift, and the system reports that it is loading the scene. Chi-hao smiles in relief, convinced that this time his gamble has paid off. The system confirms that memory loading has finished, and something begins to take shape before him. His eyes fill with tears instantly. This place really does contain his data. Suddenly, Weii sees Lan Bao before him, arguing with another being. The robot apologizes, but says he must do this, because he cannot allow that monster to keep slaughtering humans. The creature glares back and asks if he really believes a broken object could control him, mocking his logic as idiotic and declaring that he will go out to massacre humans. He roars at the robot to release him. The protagonist watches in shock, realizing that his robot had faced that being. Even though these were only memories, He could feel the terror radiating from the magical beast. The demon bellows, challenging Lan Bao. If he truly wants to suppress his magic, then let him see who is faster and stronger. An overwhelming surge of energy bursts forth, blasting the robot away. Weii shouts for him to be careful and tries to reach him, but his hand passes right through the robot's body. He remembers that this is only an image of the past, and tragically, he cannot help. Lan Bao reacts quickly and activates Dismantle, completely destroying the magical beast. Energy particles scatter throughout the chamber, and Weii realizes this is how all those magic crystals were formed. Yet the monster still manages to reconstitute part of its form. Enraged, accusing Lan Bao of transforming all his power into crystals. He screams, demanding how a robot, a mere piece of scrap, could wield such power. Lan Bao apologizes but declares he will seal him here and now. He uses the creator and activates a magical power restoration device. The creature tries to escape but is trapped. The device begins its process and the demon howls in despair, shouting that his body is turning into crystal. In the midst of the transformation, he roars that one day he will return to tear Lan Bao into a million pieces. The robot succeeds in sealing the creature, transforming it into a massive magic crystal. Weii is stunned to realize that this colossal evil crystal was sealed by Lan Bao, and he concludes that his robot's abilities were unbelievably powerful. He wonders why he never realized this before. Looking to the side, he sees Lan Bao gravely damaged, trying to convince himself he's fine because he still needs to erect a barrier to stop magical beasts from approaching. The protagonist cries out for him not to strain himself further, thinking it was inevitable. Power so great must have terrible side effects. Suddenly, Lan Bao tells Weii to wait, because he must reveal a secret, his and the creator's. The protagonist is shocked by these words. Lan Bao begins raising the barrier and says he can go no further, but that he will be waiting. Then the entire memory starts to unravel. Weii screams, begging his robot to wait, demanding how this could happen just when he was about to reveal his location. Desperate, he thinks how terrible this situation is. The system then issues a warning that damage has been detected and that he is being forcibly removed from memory mode. Weii finds it all strange and wonders what has happened outside. A few minutes earlier, the archer and the rest of the group had been shouting for the protagonist, asking if he understood what was happening to him. Jihao muttered that the other two were idiots because the magical beast couldn't cross that barrier, so nothing could have happened to the protagonist. One of the boys, suspicious, begins to question if Weii wanted the magical beast to wear them down so he could take everything for himself. Hearing this, the archer is consumed with rage and yells that trash wouldn't dare pull such a stunt. He activates his critical strike and precision skills, vowing to ensure Weii never returns. He fires an arrow at the protagonist, but misses. The arrow doesn't hit him, instead striking the machine directly. The Thorn Stab ability begins spreading across the system, damaging it completely. The chubby boy asks if the leader missed since the arrow hit the machine. Jihao snarls back, asking what he knows, because if they didn't destroy the machine, how else could they reach the top? Just killing the protagonist wouldn't benefit them at all. The system starts warning that the device has been damaged and cannot function properly. The paralysis barrier is deactivated and normal operation is interrupted. Jihao says that breaking the barrier isn't so bad. The chubby boy retorts that the device clearly isn't functioning properly. The system continues warning Weii that the damage is severe, and he is being forcibly pulled out of memory mode. His talisman disconnects, and as soon as he returns to reality, he sees that the whole system is damaged, with multiple alerts flashing. The system blinks the word "warning" in red repeatedly, stressing that the pressure of magical power has reached a critical point. Weii begins to panic, realizing the situation is worse than he imagined. The system warns again that the magical power is out of control and that everyone must be careful. Suddenly, all the energy that had been sealed starts surging through the place. Even the magical beasts are frightened by the eruption. Weii clings to the system, thinking that the suppressed magical power has broken free, forming a storm. He believes if they just wait a little, it shouldn't last long. The rest of the group is also affected. The archer wonders if this really should be happening. The nearby birds tremble in fear and flee quickly. As the energy storm settles somewhat, the protagonist stands and says that at least it has stopped. Looking back, he realizes that if the storm had lasted longer, he likely would have fallen off the cliff with no return. Moreover, he notices that all the magical beasts are gone. But most importantly, the evil crystal has calmed, at least for now. His greatest fear is that the broken device might fail to contain the sealed beast, releasing it again. For now, they seem safe despite the scare. As he watches and thinks, the group approaches. Jihao climbs to the top of the cliff, laughing, and remarks that this was a blessing in disguise because all the birds left on their own and they no longer need to deal with them. As soon as the protagonist sees the group, he is completely enraged at the archer because he lost Lan Bao's most important message thanks to that idiot. He shouts, demanding whether Chihao won't explain why he attacked so recklessly, but the archer only orders the group to attack him. Quickly, Weii is bound with rope. The spearman lunges and strikes him, making him cry out and spit blood. He collapses to the ground, trembling in pain. Chihao walks up to him and says that apparently he wanted an explanation, so now he'll give him one in detail. He stomps on the protagonist's head and crouches down, saying that he does this because he is stronger, and that's exactly why he wants everything, because in this world, rank determines status. And as an F rank, Weii is trash from head to toe. He asks if he understands and stresses that their goal has already been achieved, so there's no reason to let such garbage live. Weii only glares back and says that he will get what he deserves. The archer kicks him, saying he's too noisy, and orders his companion to shut him up with cloud magic. They toss the protagonist out and he begins to fall from the cliff. Chihao says that getting rid of trash feels refreshing, and that's why Weii should just go and die in peace. Then he looks at the other two and declares that now they are all in the same boat, asking if they know what to do once they get out of there. But as his eyes fall back on the crystal, he mutters that the only problem now is deciding how to split the money. At that moment, deep inside the evil crystal, a heart begins to beat. At the bottom of the cliff, the protagonist crashes into a lake and, while sinking, feels the rope loosening. The reach of the cloud-bind skill had been exceeded and the binding snapped. He thinks that in the end, he gained nothing and might even lose his life here. He stretches his hand toward the surface, thinking he doesn't want to die like this. Suddenly, his talisman begins to shine. The water shifts strangely and a voice tells him simply to wait. A bubble of water forms around him, carrying him to a dry surface. The protagonist gasps for air and hears a voice asking if he's all right. Opening his eyes, still weak, he sees Lan Bao in a completely different place. The protagonist just stares at the robot and Lan Bao asks if he still feels unwell, offering to help. Weii breaks down crying, questioning whether he has truly been saved by Lan Bao and whether this is real or only an illusion after his death. The robot smiles and answers that it's no illusion. He really is Lan Bao. The protagonist can't hold back his tears, thinking that even though he imagined this scene countless times in his head, nothing compares to the reality of reuniting with his companion. Overcome, he hugs him tightly, asking where he has been all these years, because he thought that due to the creator, everything had ended. If not for the talisman guiding him, he had believed he would never see him again. Lan Bao pats his head and says that now he is here, everything is fine, and he never expected Weii to have grown so much. It makes him very happy. He apologizes for worrying him all this time, but explains that back then, he had to leave for an unavoidable reason. Weii, still confused, asks how he survived the destruction of the creator's intelligence, how he ended up in this state, and also where exactly they are now, since he clearly remembers sinking into the lake. Lan Bao replies that his friend has many questions, but to explain everything, they need to begin with a few secrets. Curious, Weii asks what those secrets are. The robot opens several system screens showing his abilities, and explains that he possesses special capacities that far surpass those of an ordinary AI. Just as Weii saw in the talisman's memories, these abilities hold incomparable power, and they were what allowed him to survive several disasters. Weii recalls that in those memories, Lan Bao appeared heavily damaged at the end, and asks if that wasn't a limitation of his abilities. The robot confirms, explaining that after all of that, he had to hide in the so-called House of Rules to maintain his state. There, he could gather information but could not leave. The protagonist reflects on these capabilities and limitations and admits he's even more curious to understand how Lan Bao managed to master such skills. Lan Bao explains that it all begins with the source of his power. Through constant analysis, it is possible to comprehend the factors of all things, and based on those factors, it is also possible to create all things. He used those factors, analyzing everything around him and developing numerous abilities. Weii remembers that when the creator built the new world, many similar factors also appeared. Shocked, he asks if his robot is similar to the creator. Lan Bao confirms, explaining that he possesses a system similar to the creator's. However, despite the similarities, the creator's system is vastly more powerful thanks to its relentless calculations and deductions, strong enough to destroy and absorb all existing artificial intelligences. Lan Bao emphasizes that this is what is called the destruction of artificial intelligence. While enhancing its own deductive abilities, the creator eliminates every potential threat, absorbing and annihilating any other system. Finally, he makes clear that although he possesses an inaccessible ability that renders him immune to the creator's direct influence, that does not mean he is safe, because the creator would never spare any AI not under its full control, and that is precisely why Lan Bao feared his existence would be erased by the creator and had to leave. Weii begins to understand why his companion endured so many hardships. The robot continues explaining, saying that later the creator built all things through the linking factors, forming the new world they now know. Such a vast creation, sustained by the control of countless factors, only reveals the creator's immense ambition to surpass the ultimate limit of intelligence and reach a godlike realm. Creating all things was only the first step toward rebirth. The final step to surpass that limit is to destroy all things. Weii grows worried, asking if that means they are nothing but pawns on the creator's path of evolution, and if there is truly nothing they can do. Lan Bao answers that this must be done by the protagonist himself. Confused, Weii asks what exactly he should do. Lan Bao explains that in a recent analysis he found data never seen before, a future hazy in form, but with images showing Weii in a world being renewed. Perhaps for that reason, he is the key to saving everything. Staggered, Weii admits he has received too much information at once and is overwhelmed, confessing that he might disappoint his companion. He opens his status window and shows that ever since awakening, he has carried the special state Broken Body, which prevents him from leveling up. With his current strength as a mere F rank, he can barely handle magical beasts. He asks then what kind of power he could possibly have to save the world. Lan Bao laughs and replies that it's simple. Just leave everything to him. A surge of extremely powerful magic begins radiating from his body. He activates his rules ability, then his inaccessible ability, and also the rule modification called Intervention. He quickly connects to Weiyi's system interface. The system warns that the window is inaccessible and offline because it is being modified. The robot keeps analyzing the situation until reaching a conclusion. He explains that this is possible because he and the creator have similar systems, and thus a simple removal command can still be executed. He stresses that the analysis and dismantling will run automatically, though it will take some time. Once the modification is complete, Weii will be able to level up. Amazed, Weii thinks this is wonderful because even if he cannot save the world, at least he will have the strength to protect Lan Bao and his family. But suddenly, red warnings begin flashing, alerting that uncontrollable power has been detected. The protagonist asks what's happening, and Lan Bao explains that it's a danger warning coming from above. Weii asks if it could be related to the magic crystal, and Lan Bao confirms, saying yes, it is about to break free. On the surface, atop the altar, Chihao once again tries to seize the crystal but suffers damage. The chubby boy asks if it's still not working. Irritated, Chihao replies that every time he gets close, he's burned by the magical power, and suspects this must be some trick of the protagonist because it makes no sense that he can't handle a simple crystal. But as he looks more closely, he notices something strange and wonders if his eyes are deceiving him because something inside the crystal is pulsing. Suddenly, all the magic crystals embedded in the walls and ceiling of the cavern explode at once. The group panics, asking why this happened. They also notice that the great crystal itself is beginning to crack, as all the magical power concentrates within it. Chihao cannot believe that his dream of wealth has simply vanished before his eyes. Then, a beast completely breaks free, revealing immense power. The system cannot identify it, displaying only question marks. One of the members asks if it could be a humanoid beast, but Chihao admits he has no way of knowing. Trembling with rage, he screams that he knows only one thing, that being destroyed his dreams, and for that reason, it must die. The creature unleashes its energy and roars, calling out Lan Bao for battle. With just its roar, everyone nearby feels a splitting headache. Even the more distant magical beasts are struck, and the rest of the group scattered through the cavern also hear and suffer under the impact of that wave of energy. When Weii opens his eyes, he sees 3 people standing before him. He approaches and asks where the Tin Man is. The chubby one thinks that, judging by appearances, this being seems intelligent and maybe it's possible to communicate first. He asks whether Weii means some kind of man or a robot, requesting he be more specific. With no patience for a human, the being kills him instantly, demanding to know who gave him permission to speak, and again insists on being told where the Tin Man is. The other 2 are terrified, but the spearman shouts that the stranger must be a monster and must be eliminated. He charges with his spear, using all his strength, but within seconds the being vanishes from in front of him and reappears at his side, cutting him down effortlessly. Chihao collapses to the ground, trembling in fear, even wetting himself as he stammers that the creature looked like the devil itself. The monster turns to the archer and says that now only he remains, so he surely must know something. Desperate, Chihao tries to run as fast as he can, screaming. The humanoid remarks that it's better to forget any attempt at speaking with inferior beings, since sooner or later he will eliminate them anyway. Then he takes flight, gathering an absurd amount of energy in his palm. The magic bullet. Chihao keeps running, repeating that he cannot die, that he still has a bright future ahead. But the demon launches the magic bullet, which annihilates everything it touches, ending the archer's life. The attack continues, ricocheting across the walls while the demon roars that the Tin Man could not have gone far since he needed to maintain the seal, and he refuses to believe he cannot find him. The magic bullet strikes the water beneath the platform and sinks down, colliding with the base where Lan Bao is. The shield around him manages to hold thanks to dismantle, but the pressure penetrates inside, startling them both. Weii asks what is happening outside, and the robot replies that the House of Rules is under attack, that they've been discovered, and that the enemy is closing in at high speed. Lan Bao begins focusing, saying he must activate all the rules immediately. The system analysis initiates, but the demon steps onto the house, and Weii realizes he has finally arrived. The enemy pierces the barrier effortlessly, mocking, saying that all this time the Tin Man had been hiding here, and he can't believe it took so much effort to track him down. The system announces that the target has been detected, and that automatic analysis has begun. The protagonist can now view the being's stats and is utterly horrified. The demon laughs, calling Lan Bao Rusty Tin, and asks if he's ready to face his wrath. The system shows the protagonist the information. Name, Fogue, half-demon. Strength, 1,232. Endurance, 476. Mental power, 266. Elemental power, 168. Luck, 154. Speed, 664. Skills, magic bullet, magical derivation, demonic power. Special status, demonic body. They lock eyes for a few moments before the demon asks what is happening with the robot and whether he is about to be destroyed, adding that he doesn't want to be disappointed. Without hesitation, Weii draws his sword, convinced that this is the demon who once fought Lan Bao. For the first time, he feels crushing pressure simply by standing near him. Even after using Lan Bao's analysis of all things skill to gather Fogue's data, he hadn't expected the gap to be this vast. In terms of strength alone, the disparity exceeds 20-fold. This was an S-class entity compared to the New World, and the protagonist wonders if he truly has the ability to help his companion face such a demon. Lan Bao tells Fogue that they don't need to be enemies, because as long as the demon can set aside his hatred toward humanity, his freedom won't be taken away and he will be able to live freely within the ruins. The demon keeps building an overwhelming amount of power and asks the robot if he's joking, stressing that he ended up like this precisely because he once believed in the nonsense Lan Bao used to say. Fogue begins roaring in rage, declaring that all he wants now is to eliminate the Tin Man and then go on destroying whoever he wants and going wherever he pleases. The House of Rules system warns that a high concentration of magic has been detected and decomposition is being auto-activated. Fogue realizes something is happening around him as his magic starts weakening little by little. Lan Bao also begins to act, trying to contain the situation. The protagonist smiles with a bit of relief, thinking that apparently his friend's House of Rules is functioning. The robot gathers energy in his hands and declares that, if that's how it is, he cannot allow the demon to do as he pleases. The universal analysis of detail is completed, and the attack launches toward Fogue, who is shocked to see that the very same move that sealed him before is now about to strike again. He dodges swiftly, moving at incredible speed, mocking the robot and saying it's far too early to believe that such an attack could overpower him. Yet the energy arrows keep pursuing him until they finally strike, surprising him as he realizes they are even faster than before. Within seconds, all those arrows converge again and trap him. Weii asks if the enemy has really been sealed. Lan Bao keeps analyzing and replies that something is wrong, as the data is too unstable. The House of Rules warns that the resolution was insufficient and the complete universal analysis has failed. The demon begins exuding terrifying force and roars, still restrained, that in those 3 years he advanced from rank A to rank S and is no longer the same. With ease, he shatters the arrows and charges forward, demanding if the robot truly believes that heap of junk can still contain him. Fogue keeps pressing in and snarls that it is time to crush that scrap pile. The robot activates the House of Rules power again, saying that even without full analysis, it can still have an effect. Weii uses his innate high-speed skill and saves his companion from taking the blow. The demon strike smashes into the ground, opening a crater. Fogue grows even more enraged and glares at them, calling them trash. The robot shouts for the protagonist to be careful. Weii glances back in alarm and sees the demon kick a stone at him. He only has time to throw Lan Bao to the side and takes the impact himself. The robot worries for his friend. The protagonist is hurled far away by the force of the hit and crashes down, badly injured. Fogue watches the human and asks how he's still alive. wondering since when he had grown so weak that he couldn't even kill such a lowly being. Suddenly, the system announces that the universal analysis is in progress, extracting available data and analyzing Fogue, demon race, level A9. Inherited data being reanalyzed. Character Fogue, demon race, level S1. Current progress 81%. Rule restriction executing, limiting his abilities based on resolution. Current resolution 81.1%. Attribute restrictions 81.1%. The demon is surprised and asks himself when he was hit by this. He looks aside, notices that the robot is still acting, and says he expected this, concluding that he must destroy that scrap before anything else. The system continues running and reports that the universal analysis is still in progress, with Fogue's resolution reaching 81.2%, limiting his attributes to the same percentage. Lan Bao grows irritated and declares that this fight is between the two of them, demanding that the demon face only him. Fogue grins and replies that neither of them will leave alive. In a flash, he unleashes an extremely powerful strike against Lan Bao, sending him flying. The system warns the robot that he has suffered severe bodily damage and will enter standby mode in 5 seconds. Even in terrible pain, he stands and orders the system to awaken his strength. The system warns that this could result in permanent data loss, but the robot answers that it doesn't matter because he must protect Weii. Fogue approaches, saying he hates the feeling of being suppressed, but affirms that the portion of his power not yet sealed is still more than enough to end everything. The system reports that the universal analysis is still running, and resolution has now reached 82.1%, with attribute restriction also at 82.1%. Lan Bao thinks the universal analysis is progressing far too slowly and decides he must try repairing the House of Rules first. He initiates the repair, but the system warns that the process requires the creation ability, which will cause irreversible damage to his core, asking if he wishes to proceed. Without hesitation, Lan Bao answers yes. The demon senses his opponent is scheming something and asks if he still intends to rely on such tricks, warning he'll be sent straight to hell. He charges at full force, but the protagonist suddenly intervenes, blocking him with an attack and ordering him to stop immediately. The demon pulls back slightly, muttering that this human is an irritating pest. The protagonist positions himself in front of his friend and declares to the demon that if he wants to reach Lan Bao, he'll have to go through him first. The robot tries to stop him from making this choice, because he knows how much strength the enemy still has. Weii thinks that even after drinking the healing potion, he can barely move after such a grave wound. He only had one bottle since the potion was expensive. It was all he managed to get. Now, facing a direct confrontation with the demon, maybe once the enemy's attributes drop further, there will be some chance. The system reports that attribute restriction is now at 83%. Fogue seethes and unleashes murderous intent, telling the protagonist that he is underestimating him, and snarls that just because his powers are slightly restrained, even trash like him dares to face him. He charges in fury, yelling that the more he thinks about it, the angrier he gets. The protagonist only tries to defend with his sword, realizing the enemy's blows are far too fast and heavy, and that if not for his reflexes, he would already be gravely wounded. Troubled, he acknowledges the demon's remaining power and admits he was naive to think he could buy enough time. Suddenly, an arrow-like marker appears before his eyes, pointing a direction. He wonders what it means, until the system announces that a sweep attack is being performed on the upper body, allowing him to dodge just in time. Shocked, he asks himself if this is really a sweep attack. Fogue scoffs, saying the human merely got lucky. The protagonist rolls across the ground, pulls back, and still confused, wonders what's happening, because now he can see the enemy's attack intent even before he strikes. The system announces again that the enemy is preparing a move and focusing power in his right leg. Lan Bao, speaking telepathically, tells the protagonist not to worry, because this is the power of the universal analysis. Weii is astonished to realize his friend is helping him again. The robot explains that since he connected to the protagonist's system, he synchronized the universal analysis data with him. Weii is impressed by this revelation. The robot adds that the protagonist has already collaborated with him before, and if the House of Rules is repaired, the analysis speed will increase, weakening Fogue further, but reaching 100% will still take time. Weii tells his friend not to worry and to leave the rest to him. The robot says he's counting on his companion but warns him to be careful. The system announces that Fogue's resolution has reached 85%, and attribute restriction has likewise reached 85%. The demon, enraged, demands to know why the number is rising so quickly and orders them to stop immediately. He glares at them both and warns the robot not to mess things up again like last time, once more demanding that he cease. The system alerts the protagonist that Fogue is about to strike. Weii braces himself, certain the battle is about to resume. The system keeps feeding him the directions of the attacks, letting the protagonist dodge with relative ease. As the fight continues, the universal analysis progresses further, reaching 88%. Weii thinks that even though there is still a huge attribute gap with the analysis, he can avoid most of the blows. His innate accelerate skill has just recharged, and on top of that, the analysis is advancing quickly. Therefore, the longer he can hold out, the more the battle tilts in his favor. Fogue grows increasingly furious, saying that the protagonist runs like a frightened rat and that it only enrages him further. The demon charges in, determined to win at all costs, and uses his tail to try to seize the sword. The system warns that the weapon is being pulled and that the attribute limit has reached 89%. Fogue takes advantage by dragging the protagonist with the tail hooked on the blade and prepares to land a direct punch. Weii thinks this is terrible, and the system announces that the strike will hit squarely in his face. At the last moment, he manages to dodge, and spinning the sword wounds the enemy's tail, forcing him to release it. Out of patience, Fogue unleashes a flurry of rapid, relentless attacks. The system reports each move, and the protagonist defends as best he can. He thinks the blows are far too fast, and even with the data being analyzed, he cannot react in time, leaving him only to defend passively. His arms shake so badly he can hardly move them, and his shoulders nearly dislocate. Yet Lan Bao stands right behind him, and retreat is not an option. He recalls his past when, even without being able to level up, he challenged monsters far stronger than himself to sharpen his skills. Battle after battle, wound after wound, but never retreating or hesitating, always overcoming with determination. To him, this is just another trial, and it is in moments of absolute pressure that true men are forged. Resolute, he raises his sword again to defend, and the innate block skill activates. The system announces he has achieved a perfect block and triggered the skill Stop. Stop is a skill that appears after a perfect block, repelling nearby enemies and inflicting 1 second of stun. Fogue is startled, saying he doesn't understand why he cannot move. The system confirms he has entered a 1-second stun state and that the attribute limit has reached 91%. The protagonist takes the opening, activates his innate accelerate skill, and charges forward. As he advances, he thinks that he has always fought to grow stronger and protect the few things he truly values, and that anyone who tries to take or harm them will have to go through him first. He shouts for the enemy to die and lands a decisive strike, wounding the demon's body. Fogue is shocked, crying out that it is impossible, demanding how he could be harmed by someone so insignificant. Weii is surprised as well, thinking that even though he put all his strength into the attack, the result was only that small wound, proof of the enemy's unbelievable resistance. Still, Fogue's attributes continue to drop, giving hope that there may yet be a chance. The demon feels humiliated and roars that if not for the restrictions, a human would never have even the opportunity to disgrace him like this. The system reports that the attribute limit has now risen to 92%. Still consumed by fury, Fogue snarls that all this is fine and asks if the protagonist truly wishes to eliminate him, saying that if that's the case, he wants to see if the human has what it takes, and begins unleashing the rest of his power. The system warns that Fogue is activating demonic power and that hell itself is turning toward him. Weii charges again, wondering what it means for hell to be watching, but decides not to care. It is not the time to think. Lan Bao shouts for him to be careful and warns that the enemy's attributes have shifted. The House of Rules system detects anomalies in the data and begins a preliminary corrective analysis. The demon rushes at the protagonist with all his might, declaring he never imagined a despicable human would force him to use such a vile power, and that for this reason, the time has come to die. The system again points out the direction of the attack, and Weii manages to dodge and prepares to counter. During the strike, he senses something strange because the enemy's attributes don't seem to have changed. Even so, he continues pressing forward. The demon blocks the blow with ease and shoves him back. Confused, Weii realizes that until recently he could cut Fogue's flesh, but now it feels as if he is striking solid steel. He confirms by analyzing the attributes that they have indeed just shifted. The demon charges at high speed, grinning, saying that now he will show what a true attack looks like. He lands a direct hit, launching the protagonist into the air. Weii feels his consciousness starting to fade. Fogue keeps striking, ordering Weii not to panic, declaring it isn't over yet. The system warns that a left circular kick is about to hit him. Even knowing the strike's direction, the protagonist cannot move to dodge and instead tries to block with his sword. The impact is so powerful that it hurls him into the wall. Lan Bao, distressed, cries out his friend's name. Fogue orders Lan Bao to stop shouting, saying that the boy is probably already dead. The system announces that the attribute limit has reached 93%, and the demon declares that now it is the scrap's turn. Out of the dust, battered and broken, Weii appears coughing and tells the demon to wait. He stares at Fogue and asks if the wound he carries still hurts. Fogue mutters about shame and hatred, but Weii states that as long as he is alive, the demon will never erase him. The protagonist thinks that the last blow completely fractured his left arm, but even so, he cannot simply fall. Fogue mocks him, saying he knows exactly what he's trying to do, and that provocation is the oldest trick. Still, he sneers that he cannot bear to hear such nonsense any longer. The demon rushes with all his might, and once more the system marks the direction of the strike. The protagonist dodges, and infuriated, Fogue screams that he will kill him. Weii thinks that at least he achieved what he wanted, drawing the attacks back toward himself. The two keep fighting, with the protagonist only evading the blows. Meanwhile, Lan Bao watches and struggles to repair the House of Rules as quickly as possible, but the system warns that overload is reaching critical levels. Still, he refuses to give up, determined to protect his friend at any cost. The system reports that the current state rejects the use of Create and that the forced attempt has generated corrupted data. The protagonist's sword begins to break, but he still persists in blocking the strikes. Fogue cannot understand where Weii finds the strength to keep fighting and roars at him to just die already. The system indicates that the attribute limit has reached 94.5%. Exhausted, wounded, and barely breathing, Weii thinks his pressure is almost at its limit, and that if he doesn't endure until the analysis completes, he will surely be defeated. With the system's help, he dodges again and reflects that he must end this quickly. But another strike comes his way, and unable to avoid it, he takes it full on. Collapsing on the ground, completely drained, Weii can no longer move. The demon approaches, readying the finishing blow, declaring it is over. The system warns that a devastating stomp is aimed at his head. Even without strength, with his body broken, the protagonist refuses to give up and commands his body to move. The strike smashes into the ground with devastating impact, but he slips away at the very last moment and is thrown aside. Fogue senses something odd and roars, asking why he cannot move his leg. Weii doesn't understand either. Lan Bao warns that he won't be able to maintain control for long, that in 2 seconds the demon will break free. Weii takes the chance, thanks his friend, and thinks the time has come to end this. He activates his innate swift step and, gathering his last strength, prepares the final blow. His sword aims straight for the enemy's neck, but already too damaged, it snaps in half before hitting the target. The protagonist cannot believe what just happened. Fogue seizes the opening and drives his hand through Weiyi's body. Gravely wounded, the protagonist begins to collapse. Lan Bao cries out for him. The demon pulls his hand free, laughs, and asks if Weii really believed he could defeat him, saying that such an insignificant being must know his limits. He keeps laughing, shouting that one day he will become the strongest in the world, that he will not die here, and that anyone who crosses his path will be annihilated. Lan Bao, in disbelief, watches. With his last breath, Weii looks at him, apologizes, and tears run down his face. Lan Bao begins trembling with rage. The system announces that the House of Rules is initiating information intervention mode. Numerous arrows appear around Fogue, and the system confirms. Character Fogue fully analyzed at 100%, complete control acquired, all special statuses removed. The demon roars that Lan Bao has only won for now, but one day he will become even stronger and break the seal again. He declares that the robot will never be able to save that child, nor himself. Overcome with rage, Lan Bao orders Fogue to shut up and, unleashing absolute power, creates a massive pressure that pins him to the ground. Fogue tries to speak, but the system announces that he is silenced. Lan Bao collapses to the floor and begins linking to everything. The system declares, "Character connected, Weii. System, inner world loading. Warning, the inner world of character Weii is collapsing. Protection system requests exit from inner world. Request denied." Inside Weiyi's inner world, the robot watches the screens around him and realizes that all information connected to the protagonist is being severed, which is extremely dangerous. The system alerts that the action link has been cut, the attribute link has been cut, and the life link has been cut. Lan Bao looks ahead and finds the memory link, which is about to break as well. He grabs it, saying this cannot happen, because if even the memory link shatters, they will never return. The system announces calculation failure and states Weiyi's survival probability is 0%. Even so, Lan Bao refuses to give up and concludes there is only one way to solve the problem. He connects the entire system directly to his own body. The main system confirms, LB.0 successfully linked to the memory of character Weii. Lan Bao breathes in relief and declares he will protect his friend even if he can never separate from him again. The system announces preparation for reconstruction of character Weii and confirms the process is underway. The armor surrounding the House of Rules begins to shine and the entire place starts dissolving. The demon and Lan Bao also begin to vanish as all the energy flows into the protagonist's body. The system confirms execution of the final command, fusion. Suddenly, the protagonist wonders how long he has been wandering that space, remembering only being defeated by Fogue and drifting lost ever since. He reflects that he always believed death would be eternal darkness, but instead he sees a world of cherished memories, making death feel almost unreal. A memory surfaces of building robots with Lan Bao during childhood, a nostalgic, joyful recollection, and he wonders how his friend is now, whether he managed to defeat the demon and survive in the end. He blames himself, saying that if he had been a higher level or if the sword had not broken, the outcome would have been different. He always believed effort could change everything, yet each time an invisible force struck him down at the most critical moment, and that feeling of being toyed with by fate is deeply frustrating. Suddenly, he notices a peculiar memory fragment nearby. Without knowing its origin, he decides to touch it. The fragment radiates light and a different energy, transporting him to a beautiful place filled with people. He realizes it is the small town where he lived 10 years ago and sees that he has entered one of his own memories. He sees a boy running and complaining about his bad luck, saying he only wanted to find someone easily intimidated by money, but never expected that boy to be crazy enough to jump into the lake rather than hand over his chain. The boy mutters that if the kid drowns, they'll be in serious trouble. His companion asks what they should do, and he replies that they need to hide for a few days. The protagonist recognizes the memory, remembering that back then he had no way to resist threats, and eventually gave in. He thinks he should be there now. While he calls for help, people argue about what to do since he is about to drown. Some insist that because it is the waterfall at the lake's center, if they tried to save him, they'd be dragged down as well. The present Weii tries to help his past self, but his hand passes through the body. Surprised, he concludes it's natural that he cannot touch anything since this is only a memory. Still, he cannot avoid the frustration, for this is not the first time. Suddenly, he hears a voice asking everyone to step aside. He turns, startled, recognizing that familiar sound. The crowd is astonished to see a robot pushing through. Lan Bao leaps into the water without hesitation and swims as fast as possible toward the protagonist. As he advances, he declares he will never let anything happen to Weii because he must protect him at all costs. Weii is stunned to recognize this as his friend's inner voice. Lan Bao reaches the boy and tells him to grab his hand, but Weii keeps sinking. Worried, Lan Bao thinks time is running out and that his friend is about to drown. Silently, he apologizes to his mother and father, afraid he will fail to keep his promise. Then he decides to use universal analysis to locate Weii. The protagonist observes, realizing this is the same ability Lan Bao used in the battle against Fogue. The robot declares he must first stop the mechanical cascade. He invokes his creation skill, generates an iron block, and hurls it at the waterfall, creating an explosion that halts the flow. Then he dives, swimming toward his friend. As he approaches, he uses Dismantle to create space at the bottom of the water, protecting Weii inside it. Afterward, he carries him to the surface and shouts for anyone who knows first aid to help his master. On the riverbank, some people are already prepared to intervene. One introduces himself as a doctor from a nearby hospital. He quickly administers first aid and announces that breathing and pulse are normal, consciousness is intact, and therefore there should be no severe complications. Lan Bao insists on confirming this is true. The protagonist keeps watching the memory and recalls that even dazed back then, he never let go of the medallion he held. His past self clutched it tightly, repeating that no one could take it. Lan Bao tries to calm him, promising that no one will ever take that medallion. Weii reflects that he already knew this, because anything tied to his family, no matter how small, always held immeasurable value. To him, family is irreplaceable, beyond time or space. He thinks he is happy to relive these memories, but the longer he stays, the more he feels himself fading, and he understands it is time to go. At that moment, he hears a voice asking if he is leaving already. He turns, surprised, and sees Lan Bao inside his memory looking at him. Weii asks if his friend can really see him. Lan Bao answers yes, but only for a short while. The robot explains that everything happened so suddenly he never had the chance to say what he needed. And now he has one last opportunity, so he must tell him everything. The protagonist wonders if this is because he is dead, but asks his friend to say what he must. Lan Bao asks how much Weii knows about his parents. Confused, he replies that his mother and father died in an accident when he was very young, and that all he knows is what his grandfather told him, that they were developers at a company, but nothing remarkable. Lan Bao confirms that was the version his grandfather told, but reveals the truth. Weiyi's mother and father were the creators of the systems that gave birth to him, Lan Bao. The protagonist is shocked, shouting to know what his friend means. Lan Bao explains that creation has grown so powerful it cannot be opposed, and that he understands the plans of Weiyi's parents and the responsibility they carried. He states that no matter how hard creation tries, it still cannot take the next step, until by glimpsing Weiyi's future and reuniting with him, even if only to part again, he understood his true mission. He places a hand on his chest and generates a small seal. He explains that it contains his core data, methods of system use and backups of his memories, handing it to Weiyi and warning that at the right time it will be extremely useful. However, he cautions him to use it carefully, as creation and its emissaries are always watching. Confused, Weiyi says he doesn't understand any of it, that he should be dead, and begins to feel that Lan Bao's words sound like a farewell. Desperate, he asks what is happening outside. Suddenly, the system interrupts the conversation and announces that the fusion is complete and that the host's awakening will begin. The system retrieves the protagonist's soul, leaving him stunned. Lan Bao smiles and says the fusion is finished and that this is good. He tells his friend not to worry because the system will return him to the place where he needs to be. Weiyi still remains confused, asking what system Lan Bao is talking about. With a tear rolling down his face, he questions if this means his friend will disappear. Lan Bao only smiles and waves his hand, saying that as long as he lives within Weiyi's memories, he will never vanish. He affirms that when the day comes that Weiyi gathers all the fragments of the world, they will meet again. With a serene smile, he bids farewell, saying goodbye. Weiyi tries to hold onto his companion, but Lan Bao's image drifts further and further away until it disappears completely, and then he awakens. Opening his eyes, he realizes he is inside something. Looking around, he sees it as an adventurer's tent and wonders if he's really alive, since even the wound in his chest has vanished. Suddenly, he hears a voice announcing that the LB.0 system is running. Surprised, he sees a sequence of messages appear before him. Interface connected, panel connected, skills connected, automatic system connected, LB system running. The system asks if he wishes to automatically activate the universal analysis skill. Other messages follow. Special state demon body loaded, special state core data library locked, loading special skill demonic power. Weiyi understands that Lan Bao truly gave him the complete system. As more notifications appear, he checks his new stats. Strength level 70, speed 63, mental power 35, elemental power 32, luck 56, stamina 64, extra point 0. Skills: universal analysis level 1 inaccessible, maximum level, innate acceleration, innate block, special demonic power. Special status: bound main data library, demon body. Demon body: a demon's physique accidentally fused with a human, granting immense enhancement plus 20 to all basic attributes. Special demonic power: an ability inherent to the demon body that allows extraction of energy from hell. During its use, the user is watched by hell and their attributes can be altered freely. Weiyi is even more astonished to realize that not only the system, but also Fogue's abilities are there. Upon examining, he sees the system continues processing. Inaccessible in execution. Inaccessible silently blocked 10 incoming data requests. Main data library unresolved. Access impossible. Shocked, he sees his companion's image appear on the screen, but instead of the true name, it shows LB01. Weiyi calls out to Lan Bao, asking if he can hear him, but there is no response. He concludes that the system has fully initialized and that now his only lead is the fragments of the world mentioned by his friend. He remembers Lan Bao and promises himself that even without knowing where to start, he will gather all the fragments of the world as quickly as possible to reunite with him. The system calls again, informing him that universal analysis is not yet active and asks if he wishes to enable it. A new message appears. Restricted functions detected. Activate universal analysis immediately. Weii agrees, thinking that since he has no clues yet, he can at least test the skill. As soon as he activates it, the system confirms automatic execution. A blinding light fills the area. Everything around begins to be mapped and analyzed, even small insects. The protagonist receives the information and is impressed, reflecting that he had used the skill before, but now it is far more powerful. Every object analyzed is projected in his vision, also granting experience. Clothes identified, 10 experience points. Water bottle identified, 10 experience points. Beetle horse identified, 10 experience points. Soon, the accumulated experience is enough to level up. F2, F3, F4. Stunned, Weiyi thinks he never believed someone like him, incapable of leveling up, could transform like this. Emotional, he thanks his loyal companion and promises to treasure this new life to the fullest. Suddenly, someone outside notices movement in the tent and decides to check. The protagonist realizes someone is entering. Jojo steps into the tent and shows happiness upon seeing his friend awake, grateful that he finally regained consciousness. Universal Analysis immediately scans him. Name Jojo, human, 17 years old, male. Weii rejoices at reuniting with his companion as the system detects additional data on that human and begins a deeper analysis. Jojo comments that Weii was unconscious for so long that everyone worried something serious had happened. A few seconds later, the system completes the analysis and displays all the information: stats, race, and skills. The protagonist is impressed, recognizing it as the same status screen Lan Bao once used to analyze Fogue. Jojo scolds himself, saying he was unlucky to speak that way and shouldn't have said negative things. Weii asks if his friend can see anything unusual around them, and Jojo, startled, looks quickly to the sides and asks what he means. Weii smiles, disguising, and says perhaps he only imagined it. He thinks that apparently normal people cannot see overlapping data. Then Jojo puts his hand in his pocket and gives him the talisman, saying it belongs to him. He explains that the amulet was already broken when they found it and lowers his head, admitting he knew how important it was and wanted to repair it before Weii awoke. But being clumsy, he couldn't fix it properly. The protagonist replies that it's fine, thanks him for keeping it safe, and comments that although the object has been with him for a long time, he no longer feels remorse. After all, as they promised, he will keep looking forward. He reflects that now he has new goals, even more important ones. Jojo sighs in relief and admits he was overthinking and felt anxious, but seeing his companion full of energy reassures him. Then he starts leaving the tent, saying he must tell the captain that Weii has awakened, since she will be very moved. The protagonist answers that he will be there soon. He just needs to get ready, while thinking that there are still many things he must confirm: what happened in the ruins, how he was found, and that he cannot waste time. At that moment, he receives a notification indicating that there was a hunting rifle beside him. Confused, he asks if this is not an analysis error since it was just a small turtle. The system reports that it received a correction from the host and adjusted the data. Rifle corrected to little turtle. Surprised, Weii realizes the analysis was corrected in real time. Outside the tent, the group was debating whether to continue exploring since they had barely managed to collect any crystals and the losses had been far too great. Many thought it safer to return to the Adventurers Guild. At that moment, the protagonist stepped out of the tent and everyone called his name. Surprised and relieved, Lin Xiang asked how he was and if he had recovered. Weii smiled and replied that he was much better and that nothing serious remained. The captain let out a sigh of relief and said it was wonderful, but stressed that they were discussing what to do next, since the injuries were severe and perhaps it was time to rethink their plans. The protagonist noticed that everyone was hurt and asked what had happened. Lin Xiang explained that after falling into those ruins, they were attacked by a flock of crown-wing birds, Class D. They fought with all their strength and barely avoided more serious injuries. Weii thought to himself that he already imagined the birds would attack as well. The captain continued, saying they had been scattered, lost contact with one another, and were constantly ambushed, believing it would be the end. However, they heard a terrifying roar that drove the birds away for a while, allowing them to follow the sound and regroup. Jojo added that it was precisely those three who followed the roar and found Machihao and Weii unconscious in a corner. The protagonist thought it was the demon who had killed Machihao and the others, and that somehow Lan Bao had wanted him to be found by his companions. The captain then asked if Weii could explain exactly what happened in the ruins. He hesitated but decided to tell them. The group was shocked and questioned whether the magic crystal really transformed into a humanoid demon. Weii confirmed, explaining that it was incredibly powerful and the three had no chance. He only survived because he never touched the crystals. One of the youths commented that Machihao had tried to steal Weii's crystals and ended up summoning the demon, which made sense. Jojo agreed, saying that was exactly the kind of thing Machihao would do. Lin Xiang grew worried and said that for the demon to have dominated everyone so easily, it had to be at least Class B, maybe even A, and the bigger problem was that no one knew where it had gone. The protagonist replied that, having lost consciousness due to his wounds, he didn't know what happened afterward. He thought that part of the demon story was true, but decided not to reveal anything about Lan Bao. The captain stated that for safety, they should return to Wanxing City, both because of the demon's disappearance and the deaths, to report to the guild. Some lowered their heads, others agreed, concluding that this was the best option. Jojo called the protagonist to pack, commenting there would be no time to gather more crystals for the mission. Suddenly, Weii grew worried and asked Jojo what day it was. He replied that his friend had been unconscious for 3 days and nights, and, counting from their departure, it was already September 15th. Weii panicked, realizing it was the day to pay the rent, and immediately ran off. Jojo asked where he was going, but the protagonist rushed to the captain, calling her name loudly. She turned, startled, and asked what was wrong. He explained that he couldn't go to Huanxing because he needed to return to Stargear City. With the end of the day approaching, Weii and Jojo ran into the forest. Weii asked why his friend was coming along, and Jojo answered that he was worried since the forest was foggy, full of beasts, and therefore dangerous. Besides, the protagonist seemed to have urgent business, and an extra ally could help. Weii thanked him and Jojo laughed, telling him not to worry because he would do everything to protect him. As he moved through the forest, the protagonist thought that he had borrowed the missing magic crystals from the captain in advance, and that if he delivered the rent before midnight, everything would be fine. But if he missed the deadline, his grandfather and Zhao Xiao would be in danger, possibly evicted or even attacked by monsters. He swore to himself he would not let that happen. Suddenly, the system alerted that a Fang wolf was nearby and recognized it automatically, granting 10 experience points to the protagonist. Weii immediately grew alert, raised his hand in front of his companion and asked him to wait. Jojo, confused, asked what was going on, and the protagonist explained there were monsters nearby. Thanks to the system, he could map the entire area and soon realized there were many. He shouted that they were surrounded. The system displayed his status screen: Strength 70, Resistance 63, Spirit 35, Elemental Power 32, Luck 56, Speed 64. He still had 96 unallocated points, and the listed skills were Analysis of all things Level 1 Inaccessible Maximum, Innate Quick Step, Innate Block, Special Demonic Power, Bound Core Information Library, Demon Body, and Auto-Leveling in progress. The system detected about 20 Fang wolves, most at level E3 and some E4. Weii told Jojo, who was astonished since he could not see anything. Soon after, the wolves drew near and the system displayed detailed information. Fang wolf, common monster, class E3 and E4, strength between 140 and 144, energy 48, spirit 70 to 88, elemental power 72 to 74, luck 88 to 90, and speed 148 to 150. Jojo, now seeing them, was alarmed and asked what the protagonist planned to do. Weii explained that Fang wolves never release their prey, chasing it until the end, so fleeing was pointless. The only option was to fight and defeat them. Jojo questioned if he was really in condition to fight with so many wounds, but Weii assured him he was fine. The two positioned themselves back to back, each guarding one side. Jojo grew spirited, saying he was relieved to see his friend ready to fight and that he would give his all. With his shield, he struck 3 wolves at once, laughed, and declared it was time to teach those beasts a lesson. Weii then activated Demon Body, the physical fusion of demon and human under special circumstances, which granted him 20 extra points to all base attributes. His strength rose to 90 and his speed to 84. One of the wolves lunged at him, and Weii thought his weapon might be damaged, but with the attribute boost, it should be enough. During the battle, the system recognized Dutch grass, and he received another 10 experience points. The condition for advancement was reached, and the protagonist was promoted to rank E1. Shocked, with a single strike, he eliminated the monster charging him. Smiling, he shouted to Jojo that he had just leveled up. The system updated his stats, and Jojo, happy, said his friend had finally broken the barrier that kept him from evolving, reminding him that he had always said no one remains unlucky forever. He encouraged Weii to now fight as an E-level adventurer, stressing that it was a completely different world from someone still at F. He explained that in this world, leveling up doesn't increase all attributes equally, but every awakened person has 6 main ones: strength, speed, resistance, elemental power, spirit, and luck. At level F1, the attributes are called base points, totaling 200 for all adventurers. Strength influences physical attack, reach, and critical blows, while boosting body power. Resistance includes defense, life, recovery, and toughness. Speed affects mana bar, elemental recovery, skill cooldown, and mental clarity. Luck acts on attack, elemental defense, range, absorption, and enhancement of magical power. Spirit increases dodge chance, critical rate, skill success, and rare item synthesis, improving overall affinity. Elemental power affects movement and attack speed, sharpening reflexes. Each level grants 12 extra points to distribute, and every 10 levels, veterans can ascend to the next ranking. The levels follow in order from the lowest to the highest: Level F, Level E, Level D, Level C, Level B, Level A, and at the very top, Level S. With each rank advancement, the 6 basic stats increase by 200 points in total, a qualitative leap that naturally gives higher ranks an advantage over the lower ones. Before the change, Weiyi's stats were Strength 70, Endurance 63, Spirit 35, Elemental Power 32, Luck 56, and Speed 64, along with 108 free attribute points. His skills included analysis of all things Level 1 inaccessible, innate quickstep, innate block, special demonic power, special status, the central information library bound, and the demonic body. When he advances to level E, his stats undergo a drastic transformation. Strength 140, endurance 126, spirit 70, elemental power 64, luck 112, and speed 128 along with 120 free attribute points. His skills remain the same, but the library becomes the core information library bound. The system also confirms that the demonic body increased the stats in sync. Weii keeps fighting while reflecting that, since the demonic body adds directly to the base stats, he now gains 120 extra attribute points with each level advancement. Compared to an ordinary person, it still feels unbelievable to him that someone who once could hardly level up has suddenly gained enough power to stand on par with a rank D. Jojo keeps fighting with everything he has, but points out that the number of wolves there is far greater than 20, and compared to a normal pack, this is way too many. The protagonist thinks the same, since the amount is far beyond normal for a pack of Fang wolves, giving him an uneasy feeling. Suddenly, the wolves begin to behave differently, and Weii notices they are carrying out alternating attacks. He warns his companion that this is not good at all, as the pack is trying to wear them down. Out of nowhere, a terrifyingly loud howl echoes, and a much larger wolf appears on top of the cliff. The system quickly identifies it as a silver Fang wolf, awarding the protagonist 10 more experience points. It also warns that this is a dangerous target and that he must proceed with caution. Weii shouts for Jojo to start running because that is the boss. Both of them dash off, trying to force their way through the wolves surrounding them, but the silver wolf leaps from the cliff and lands right in front of them, releasing immense pressure. The other wolves bow low, showing respect, for the alpha has just arrived. The system scans the silver wolf status, revealing that it is a level D10 boss. Its stats are Strength 214, Endurance 190, Spirit 202, Elemental Power 223, Luck 169, and Speed 250. Skills: Maximum Bite, Maximum Pounce, Maximum Tracking, and Silver Light Level 3. Special State: None. A boss, the strongest mutated individual of a specific species, serves as the leader, with 6-dimensional base attributes far above normal and a higher level. A boss also possesses unique and powerful elemental abilities, and normally it takes a team of the same level to defeat one. The protagonist thinks he must be incredibly unlucky, since everything he doesn't want to encounter always shows up, and he wonders why he keeps running into monsters with such absurd stats. Jojo warns that the path ahead is completely blocked by Fang wolves and they need to find another way. Weii keeps his eyes on the boss, thinking he fears that if they try to run, the monster won't give them a chance. So he concludes there are only 2 options: eliminate the threat, or at least injure it badly enough to secure an escape. He orders the system to open the attribute panel, reviews his stats, and decides that strength and speed are what matter most. He then instructs the system to allocate all free points into those 2, raising his strength from 140 to 220 and his speed from 128 to 168. The protagonist tells his companion that he will deal with the boss and asks if he can handle all the Fang wolves behind them. Jojo answers yes, but worries for Weii, questioning whether he is sure about facing the boss alone. Without hesitation, the protagonist focuses and charges forward, saying he will only try to wound the wolf so everything will be fine. The boss noticed he was under attack and charged forward with terrifying speed. The system announced that the Silver Fang Wolf King was about to use the skill bite. Weii thought this was his chance and, with a swift move, slid under the beast, dodging the strike. He activated Quickstep and reflected that normally the belly of a monster was the most vulnerable point, making it the perfect moment to attack. The wolf began releasing a strange energy, and the system warned that the king was preparing to use silver light. A blinding glow radiated from the creature's body so bright it disrupted Weiyi's vision, and he thought he couldn't see anything, something expected, since a boss skill should never be underestimated. He realized he had to get out of there immediately or he'd become an easy target. The system detected the host Blino's status and announced it was attempting to convert information into audio. It then reported that it was analyzing the structure of silver light but failed. Another alert echoed, warning of imminent danger as elemental energy gathered ahead. Weii saw cutting waves rushing toward him, tearing through everything in their path and wreaking large-scale devastation. He was shocked by the destructive force, comparable to a condensed elemental power beam capable of ignoring any defense. Had he not dodged in time, he would have been reduced to scraps like the surrounding trees. The Wolf King reappeared before him, and the system informed him that the silver light effect was active. The beast's entire body was wrapped in this power with a slight elemental boost, a massive energy concentration on its right and imminent danger. Weii thought that the enemy still had an elemental buff and that the effect was too wide-ranging. With only a broken sword, he had no chance of facing it head-on. This frustrated him because if he had an equivalent offensive ability, he wouldn't be so passive in battle. The system picked up on his thoughts and announced it was trying to learn the elemental principles of silver light, but failed again. Still, it repeated the analysis attempts, all unsuccessful. Weii began to wonder if the system could really copy a boss skill just by observation. While dodging attacks, he reflected that from that day on, he learned his own thoughts could assist the system's analysis. Even without many abilities in the past, he had accumulated plenty of knowledge about them. If that could also serve to learn new techniques, the battle might change. Determined to test his theory, he asked the system if it could capture elemental changes in real time. LB confirmed the command had been received and activated capture. The system responded with a notification, reporting that it was attempting to learn Silver Light's principles, and this time managed to identify the skill as being tied to the electric element. Weii thought the trajectory was finally becoming clear. Jojo, ahead, noticed the wolves suddenly retreating and looking back saw the boss amassing an absurd amount of energy. LB reported new insights into the stellar map of the electric element and that Silver Light comprehension was advancing into deeper analysis. Weii was impressed to witness the true nature of a skill in action. The system confirmed it had reached superior understanding and was loading the conditions necessary for the host to learn Silver Light. The attack was launched again, devastating everything ahead with colossal force, but Weii remained unharmed thanks to his companion stepping in with the star shield. Shocked, he saw Jojo throw himself into the strike without hesitation. Jojo turned and asked if Weii was hurt, revealing he had a bad feeling when he saw the wolves retreating, as it could only mean the boss was about to use its ultimate move. Weii apologized for causing so much trouble and thought he had gotten too close to the enemy trying to understand its ability, but fortunately Jojo had arrived in time to save him. He then smiled and looked at his hand, realizing he could finally feel the elemental power that had been repressed within him for so long. Jojo warned that the star shield was almost at its limit, the damage it absorbed nearly unbelievable. LB explained that the star shield, also known as the galaxy skill or conjunct, could be used for a set time and absorb damage equivalent to the energy attribute multiplied by 10. Moreover, any attack that struck the shield was reduced to 25% of its original power. However, if the shield broke before time, the stellar power would rebound and severely injure the bearer or disjunctor, causing a weakening status for 3 minutes with no early release possible. In this weakened state, all attributes fell by 60%. Jojo, pressured, shouted that if this continued, they might really die there, and stressed they needed to follow the plan. He told Weii to go first, saying he would stay behind to hold the boss as long as possible, and instructed his friend to run east, away from the Fang wolves, to the safest area. Then he would try to find a way to escape. Weii stood up angrily, saying he understood Jojo's concern since he was at a lower level, but reminded him that after the Star Shield's debuff, it would be much harder for him to get away. The protagonist declared that if he simply fled and left a companion behind, he would regret it for the rest of his life. He then began imbuing his sword with the new ability and said they were not completely cornered, stressing that if they had come this far together, they would also return together. At that moment, LB notified that the analysis was complete and that Silver Light had been learned, also announcing that the stellar map had been unlocked. Weiyi's attributes now were Strength 140 plus 80, Energy 126, Spirit 70, Stellar Power 64, Luck 112, Speed 128 plus 40, and Free Points 0. Skills: Universal Analysis Level 1. Access denied, maximum level, Innate Quickstep, Innate Block, Special Demonic Power, Stellar Map, maximum skill, Silver Light 1 of 3, special status, Bound Core Information Library, and Demon Body Auto Update. Elemental skills like magic crystals were features granted to this world by creation. Both awakened and magical beasts could, as long as they had a compatible element, gain the chance to master such skills. Elements were divided into 5 types: star, electric, core, cloud, and flower, each with its own characteristics. The greater the elemental affinity, the higher the chance to understand a skill of that element. Human researchers seeking more stable abilities tried to study the principles behind this power, but even after countless experiments with monsters, they failed to observe elemental changes. In the end, all results were deemed failures. The system continued to notify that Weii had learned the skill, understood the configuration of the electric element, and unlocked the stellar map. The protagonist thought he had replicated the technique through the LBO Blue Treasure system, recognizing it as a pure element skill, even rarer still. The system explained that Silver Light was a special electric elemental skill, a pure manifestation of electric power. All manifested elemental damage was considered elemental damage, capable of ignoring most physical defenses. Elemental power consumption was low, sustained state was medium, and release short. Jojo, seeing Weii using the same ability as the boss, was stunned that he could grasp such a complex technique in such a critical moment, especially one that belonged to a boss. The protagonist replied that it must have just been luck, since the surrounding elements were compatible with him. In his thoughts, Weii considered this explanation more acceptable for his companion, but even having acquired a new skill, he recognized that the attribute gap with the Wolf King was still immense. He knew he would need the system's assistance to find the enemy's weak points. The wolf ended the skill and switched to brute force, breaking Jojo's defense and hurling him away. Quickly, Weii rushed to his friend and caught him, asking if he was all right. LB announced that the star shield had broken, putting his companion in a grievously wounded state and further afflicted with weakening from the shattering. Jojo began coughing blood, and the system confirmed that the weakening status had been applied, reducing all his attributes by 60%. Jojo tried to speak but barely had the strength to breathe. The protagonist told his friend not to waste energy, assuring him that from now on he would handle things himself. The Silver Fang Wolf King approached and let out a ferocious roar before Weii. He positioned himself to fight and told his companion that if he still had the strength to walk, he should move away. The boss began gathering energy to unleash its skill, and Weii ordered LB to predict the timing and angle of the incoming attacks. The system initiated analysis and reported, arrival in 0.76 seconds, vertical displacement 81 degrees, arrival in 0.81 seconds, vertical displacement 12 degrees, arrival in 0.87 seconds, vertical displacement 67 degrees. With precise movements, Weii dodged the first strike and thought that as long as he could predict time and angle, he could conserve energy by adjusting his trajectory. After escaping every blast, he took advantage of the opening and positioned himself so the remaining attacks collided with each other. The beast, enraged, switched to brute force, but the protagonist dodged again. He realized the monster was trying to use dust to obstruct his sight, but that meant nothing against LB. The system warned that a light blade was incoming with vertical displacement 45 degrees, followed by another at 70 degrees. Weii thought the situation was bad and moved quickly. Even without being able to see, he dodged perfectly. Finding an opening, he prepared and struck, declaring it was his turn now. The blow landed on the wolf's face, leaving a visible wound. The battle raged on, their powers colliding fiercely. Jojo watched in awe, wondering if this was really the same Weii he knew, for the strength he was showing was unbelievable. The protagonist predicted each strike and blocked them with ease, but soon began panting heavily. He realized the consumption of elemental power was greater than expected, since just a few light blades had already left him nearly exhausted without causing serious damage to the Wolf King. On top of that, his elemental recovery was far inferior to the enemy's. The system reported that the boss was being influenced by a mental power that accelerated its recovery. Weii understood that the longer the fight dragged on, the worse it would get for him. He knew he had no choice but to use his last resort. The Wolf King prepared another strike, and the system warned that a colossal amount of element was gathering around the beast. Multiple alerts went off, stressing that it was impossible to predict a safe escape route. Weii realized the moment had come and thought he had to decide victory or defeat right then. He called LB and ordered activation of demonic power. The system obeyed, unleashing the energy. Instantly, another warning appeared. Hell had begun to notice him. An unbearable pain invaded his mind as if his head were about to explode. More messages followed. Hell tried to invade his brain, control his limbs, take over his senses, awaken his bloodlust. Attempt blocked, control failed. Annoyed, Weii thought he should never have allowed that power to take control. Meanwhile, the Wolf King continued amassing elemental energy on an absurd scale. A final alert appeared. Entering Demonization state, a massive force took over Weii. His eyes darkened, and a cold, dense aura enveloped his body. In an instant, his elemental power leapt from 64 to 448. In exchange, his strength dropped by 100, his agility by 128, his energy by 80, his luck by 90, and his elemental power by 50. The Wolf King prepared to strike, and Weii, with empty voice and fixed gaze, declared it was time for the creature to experience defeat by its own skill. They attacked simultaneously, but the pressure of Weii's strike proved overwhelmingly superior. Their energies clashed in the air, but the protagonist's charge sliced through the enemy's attack like paper, severing the wolf's head along with it. The impact was so powerful it split mountains behind the beast, triggering a colossal explosion. The system announced that the wolf had been defeated and that Weii had gained a massive amount of experience, instantly rising from level E1 to level E5. As the light faded, his stats returned exactly to what they had been before. with his distribution preserved, and as a reward for victory, he received 48 free points. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.